Hello. Do you remember that a couple of videos ago I said that my dream political setup would be that the Labour Party get consigned to the dustbin of history and the two-party system proceeds with the Conservatives opposite the Reform Party? Do you remember that? Well, I take it back. I'm Granniopteryx. Please like, share, and most importantly, subscribe to this channel. Especially on YouTube, subscriptions seem to get lost, but that notification bell doesn't, so it might be worthwhile clicking that as well. Okay, well, to much joy and celebration, the left-wing press is talking about a letter sent by a group of Conservative MPs to Keir Starmer urging the British government to recognise the state of Palestine. Even though we might point out that the Arabs in that area, although they call themselves Palestinians, do not want a state. They've rejected the idea on several occasions. I'm sorry, I can't tell you how many. I just sort of lost count. But whatever. The Guardian reports that senior Tory MPs and peers break ranks to call for recognition of Palestine. And there's, left foot forward, of course. Even Tory MPs are now calling on the government to recognise a Palestinian state. Interestingly enough, the Telegraph hasn't run a headline like that. Instead, it's run this, which is basically an editorial, in a way, by a well-known pro-Israel activist and lawyer called Natasha Hausdorff. When you say pro-Israel activist nowadays, it sounds like you're being negative. I'm not. She's a very intelligent woman and makes excellent points. But the thing is, they have gone to recognised pro-Israel advocate rather than writing their own article, which struck me as interesting. It's a dark day for UK politics, says Natasha Hausdorff, when a dozen or so members of Parliament support those forces seeking the destruction of Israel, a key ally of the United Kingdom. Now, she is not being hyperbolic there. This is the Hamas Charter, and this is from the Federation of American Scientists, I think. Yeah, there we are, Federation of American Scientists. And this is the beginning of their charter. The Islamic resistance movement is a distinguished Palestinian movement whose allegiance is to Allah and whose way of life is Islam. It strives to raise the banner of Allah over every inch of Palestine. And by every inch of Palestine, that is from the river to the sea. The entire area of what is now Israel, the West Bank, Gaza, all the rest of it. And then they say Israel will exist and will continue to exist until Islam will obliterate it, just as it obliterated others before it. Well, Islam has obliterated many other cultures, that's for sure, mainly by using genocidal tactics. And why any logical, reasonable, sane government anywhere in the West would support such people, well, this is one of the many times I am sure I'm going to be saying in this video that I don't understand what's going on, because I really don't understand. The land of Palestine, says Hamas, is an Islamic waqf, that is a holy possession, consecrated for future Muslim generations until Judgment Day. No one can renounce it or any part, or abandon it or any part of it. So I think Hamas has made its position clear. And this is an article in The Atlantic, just so you know, this is my last free article. A close reading of Hamas's founding documents clearly shows its intentions. It says, how many Israelis or Jews or anyone else for that matter have read the 1988 Hamas Covenant or the charter that was issued in 2017? Now, I don't think we actually need to read that stuff to know what Hamas's ambitions are. We saw what they did on October the 7th. Aha, I hear you say, but what about the West Bank, which the Israelis call Judea and Samaria? Well, this is what Abbas, the current leader of the Palestinian Authority, who is actually, I think, something like in his 19th year of his 4-year term. It's something like that. He is thinking of stepping down now, though. He's in his late 80s, so perhaps he's just getting a bit tired. Abbas said not a single Israeli in a future Palestinian state. So what he's talking about here are the so-called settlers. Now, the settlers are Israeli, many of them fanatics, but not all by any means, who have settled themselves down in areas of what used to be called the West Bank. It's getting very confusing. Judea and Samaria. They have built places on unadopted land, or they've bought land. They have not just gone in and thrown locals out of their villages. As a matter of fact, I remember this, I don't remember the name of it, but I do remember that there was a situation where the Israeli army went in to remove Jewish settlers from a town which had Arabs living there already. And the Jewish settlers were saying it was theirs, and the Israeli government moved them out to much violence. They also moved out Israelis from Gaza, you may remember, in 2005, on the grounds that this would promote peace. What did Hamas do with the territory they'd got hold of after all the Israelis went and the soldiers went, and it was just left to them? Well, what they did was they built more tunnel mileage than we have in London in the underground. They destroyed the aquifer under Gaza, polluting it with cement and destroying the water table itself. So Gaza has no underground water anymore that's usable, and has to rely on Israel, that is supplying them with water, even as they're lobbing bombs. I mean, the whole situation is completely crazy, and I have to say, I don't understand it, except, well, maybe I do. In Gaza, they have a religious conviction that it is their God-given duty to kill all the Jews, and they'll do anything they can to further that aim. Now, what Abbas says here, going over to the West Bank, not a single Israeli. So, as I said, the Israelis have, there are Israelis who have settled in Judea and Samaria on land that was not adopted. You know, it sort of got lost during the Ottoman Empire. Remember, before the Jews started resettling that part of the world, it was a wasteland. Several writers, Mark Twain among them, have commented on this. A lot of it was malarial swamp, and what wasn't malarial swamp was desert. And the Jews who turned up started draining the swamps and diverting water sources so that the desert bloomed, as the Bible tells us it would. Although I'm not going to rely too heavily on the Bible in this, it's just a comment. So what happened was that when the Jews drained the malarial swamps. And the British also helped with that when they were there. They started planting eucalyptus trees in the swampy areas, and eucalyptus trees are well known for soaking up lots of water. So the Brits too have a part in this. When they started doing this, of course, fewer of the local Arabs died of malaria. The children especially would die of malaria. And the Arab population started to increase that way. Of course, a lot of Arabs came into that area as well, because the Jews were doing stuff, they were establishing industries and starting businesses. And so Arabs came in from quite a lot of the Ottoman Empire. Here I'm talking about the 19th century. They came in order to find work, because the Ottoman Empire was economically stultifying. And there's a couple of letters by Winston Churchill I think it was the 20s, in which he talked about the flow of Arabs coming unrestricted into Palestine. And by Palestine, I'm talking about what's now Israel, what's Jordan, and what's now Israel, what's Gaza, and what's Jordan, and the West Bank. All of that was an area called Palestine. It was never a state. It was like the Ozarks or the Chilterns or whatever. It was just an area. He mentioned how the Arabs were coming in an uncontrolled flow. And this was something he didn't know. He apparently wanted to stop, but there was just no mechanism to stop them. Does that sound familiar to anyone here in this country? No, I must be imagining things. Anyway, so when the Arabs got into Palestine, they started declaring that they'd been there for generations, which most of them had not. If you look at the Ottoman records, and the Ottomans did keep good records. For instance, Jerusalem had more Jews living in it than Arabs and Armenians and Germans and other sorts who were there in Jerusalem as well. Yeah, I have gone into this quite extensively. However, that is really a digression. What I'm talking about here is that Hamas has a genocidal philosophy towards Jews. Now, is the PLA any better? Well, I know that they pay, if you're in the Palestinian Authority and you go and kill a Jew in Israel, then you get a sort of pension. Even if you're in an Israeli jail, your family gets paid maintenance by the PLA. So it's well worth your while to blow yourself up or stab a few soldiers or maybe some women pushing prams. It doesn't really matter. And you end up in jail or dead. Hang on, that's my phone. Yeah, that was my horse, by the way. I did that when originally everybody used to have the same ringtone, more or less. And when I went to have lunch in the local cafe and somebody's phone went, everybody would go for their phone because it would sound like their phone. So I decided my phone was going to have a different ringtone. So I went up to my horse one day with my phone on record, and I held a basket of hay in front of the horse, just out of his reach. He was most offended, and that's the sound he made. Right, then I gave him the hay. Okay, right, that was really a digression, wasn't it? Okay, incentivising terrorism. If somebody in the Palestinian Authority kills a Jew, whether it's an infant in a pram or a soldier with a gun, doesn't matter, they get a pension. And if they're dead, the pension if they're dead or if they're in jail, the pension goes to their families. So it's well worth their while to do that. Now, I would say that isn't exactly, well, Queensberry rules, is it? And this is the way the Palestinian Authority is run. Well, we've seen the way Hamas ran Gaza, haven't we? What I don't understand, and I really don't understand this, I understand it from people like Abbas. I don't understand it from people in the West. Here we have a situation. There are Jews settling and living lives in areas that are claimed by the Palestinian Authority. If they had a state, those areas would be under Palestinian control. The state of Palestine would have these settlements or these neighbourhoods or whatever you like to call them, full of Jews there. Now, why does the PLA say those settlements are blocked to peace? I mean, why can a Palestinian state not have Jewish neighbourhoods in it? Let's look at it this way. Barnet Council. Barnet used to be a town on its own, and it's part of the London conurbation now. But it has its own character in a way, because in a way that many Americans don't understand this. Many areas of London look completely different from each other because they were built up at different times and they got different sorts of people living there. So Barnet is a relatively prosperous area of London, and it also has a lot of Jews living in various parts of Barnet. Imagine what people would think if Barnet Council suddenly decided that no Jews would be allowed in Barnet anymore. The Jews who had come from, I don't know what, Brent should go back to Brent, and the ones from Islington should go back to Islington, the ones from Haringey should go back to Haringey, whatever. And Barnet would be, to use the well-known expression, Judenrein, yeah, free of Jews. Imagine what people would say if Barnet decided to do that. They would say that Barnet Council were a bunch of Nazis, wouldn't they? And definitely would not be allowed to make such laws. Why then do people give the Palestinian state a pass on that? Why then do people in the West not say, look, you want a state, we will help you get one. We will recognise this. But you have to make this a state for all your citizens, including the Jewish ones. Why don't they ever say that? Why do they allow, why do they wish to recognise a country that is, from its very inception, founded on racist and ethno-religious lines? And I do not understand why nobody in the Guardian, I mean, they're mostly, they are relatively intelligent people, why they don't recognise this small problem. Why don't they say, OK, a Palestinian state is a good idea, but it shouldn't be founded on racist principles. Hamas want to kill all the Jews that they can lay hands on. They have said that in their covenant. And it's not being considered as an element in recognising their independence. Oh no, let them have their independence. And they're saying right here, Israel, they will do their best to obliterate Israel. Why are they being given a pass on this? And the PLA, they want to kill Jews as well. They may say, all right, we'll just take what they call the West Bank or whatever, but no Jews. All the Jews who were there have to go. That's what they'd say. Is that how any Western government would regard the founding of a state? As legitimate, as being worthy of recognition? Now, when the Israelis founded their state, they urged the Arabs to stay there and become Israeli citizens. So before anybody talks about the refugees, I want to point out that the Arabs who stayed in Israel are Israeli citizens. The ones who ran away are refugees, and I just discovered today that they have permanent refugee status. I mean, after the Second World War, a lot of Germans had to leave parts of Czechoslovakia, wasn't it? They had to go. They went to Germany. They were refugees. They were resettled in Germany, and that was, you never hear of them anymore. That's why I can't remember exactly where they were from. But Palestinian refugees are refugees down the generations. This is something else I don't understand. There's a lot about the world I don't understand. But I even less understand the idea that a conservative government or conservative grandees would come up with something like this. How do they think that will give the Conservative Party any more votes? It won't. It won't. It won't attract any of the nutcase Muslims in this country. It won't attract them. They're starting their own parties. So it doesn't make any... This is what I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. And, of course, we know that this is the sort of thing that is coming out of the pro-Palestine madness. Zionists will die. It is just as genocidal as what you see in Hamas. And I am very much upset by this because I have noticed that any country that develops an anti-Jewish ethos ends up on the skids. Now, I don't know whether it's they're ending up on the skids so they become anti-Jewish, or they become anti-Jewish and that ends them up on the skids. I don't know which is which, but it's a bad sign, whatever it is. And I very much love this country. So I get very upset when I see people doing it harm. Now, the Labour Party is definitely doing it harm now, and that's a cause of great pain to me. But I didn't think the Conservatives would do this. Oh, how wrong can you be? All right, till next time. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.